everybody, it's Monica. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new. I appreciate you all for being here. In this week's video, I decided to go back several years when I first started doing my tumblers. I haven't done a tumbler in quite a long while. This was an order. Actually, my nephew ordered this tumbler from me. We kind of bartered. He came and did a small job for me at my house. I wanted to pay him. He asked me if I could just make him a tumbler for a friend of his. So, of course, I said yes. So it kind of brings me back because I have been wanting to get back into my tumbler making. So in this video particularly, I'm going to show you the tack it method, which is using the Eileen's tack it on and on, and also a temporary tattoo. The cup came out amazing, so if you're interested, stick around, and that's coming up next. All right, you guys, I have to apologize ahead of time. I have to do a voiceover. For some reason, my camera did not capture a lot of the audio for some of these clips. But right here, as you can see, I did a prep of my tumbler. I just did a very light coat of a mint green here because I want the color to kind of come through underneath the glitter when I do the process of tacking it on, right? So right here, I'm just using a regular ordinary art brush. Then I got a little mixing cup here with just a little tiny bit of water. Of course, I'm using the Eileen's Tack It over and over. And the glitter I'm using is by Glitter Chimp. It is called Powder Blue. It does have a color shift on it. I apologize that my camera was not focusing on there, but love that glitter. I believe that's the first time I try it. And then this temporary tattoo, I got a set of these on Amazon. You can get a set of like 12 or something for like $20. Beautiful, beautiful tattoo. So as you can see in this cup here, little bit of water. I don't like using the full-blown Eileen's Tack It. I like to dilute it just a little bit with water because I don't want it to be too sticky, and I'm actually taking out a little tiny bit of water there. It was a little too much for what I'm going to need. That is pretty much all I need there. Now I'm going to go ahead and just mix it and incorporate it really well with my brush. Yeah, you just want to make sure it's well mixed before you apply it onto the tumbler. But as you saw, I didn't use too much water, just enough to dilute it a little bit, but not too much that it's too watery, right? Okay, so now I just have my cup on a one of those football from the Dollar Tree on a pipe that everybody uses them when they're doing tumblers. So I'm just spreading the Eileen's Tack It over and over, all over the tumbler, making sure that I cover the entire cup. And I'm just doing a very generous coats here, but using a very light hand. So I got a little bit of something there. I'll remove that here in a second. But just making sure I don't miss any spots, making sure I get the edges, making sure I get the bottom. I'm trying to smooth that out as best as possible. It's not really going to show once it starts drying and you put the glitter on top, right? So, but I want to make sure that I don't have any really obvious brush lines, right? You want to make sure that you smooth that out as best as possible. Okay, so now that I've applied the tack it all over the tumbler, I'm going to set it to the side and give it about 30 minutes before I come back to it and do the glitter. So I'm going to pause right here, and then once it's ready, we'll be ready to go. Okay, now that we've waited our 30 minutes, I just went and got myself a piece of parchment paper so I can start sprinkling the glitter all over the tumbler. You can be as liberal with this as you want, because a lot of it's going to come right off, and you'll see here in just a second. Just trying to make sure that I don't miss any spots at all, making sure I get the edges really well. The bottom, of course, I usually do 2 or 3 times all over, just to make sure I didn't miss any spots, right? So as you can see, I'm just being really liberal with this, as best as I can, all over, round and round. Usually the type of glitter that's best for the tack it method is a holographic. I have done those and they look amazing. This one does have a color shift, which is the reason why I chose it. It does give you a similar effect, but of course the holographic glitter looks best when you're doing the tack it method. I just chose to do this. This is the color that my nephew chose for this tumbler, and I think it comes out amazing regardless. And you'll see at the end here. Now I'm just tapping off all the excess glitter, and then I'm going to put away the remainder so I don't waste it before we move on to the next step. All right, now that I've put back the rest of my glitter, now we're going to go to the process of rubbing off the excess glitter to flatten it on to the tumbler. And I always start at the bottom and the edges and work my way up the tumbler. So you just use a very light hand. All we're doing pretty much is burnishing the glitter onto the tumbler. Very light hand here, making sure that we get every little spot. Now, as you can see, as I'm starting to burnish the glitter and flatten it, you could understand why I chose to spray paint the color of the tumbler before I did the glitter, because it would have captured the stainless steel underneath and then it wouldn't show this beautiful blue. So I just wanted the paint color that I chose for this tumbler to just shine through underneath the glitter just a little bit, but it's looking beautiful. I absolutely love it. But here I continue to go all the way around the tumbler, and I of course sped through this a little bit so it wouldn't be too long, but just making sure everything goes smoothly, nice and flat. And then once I finish that, I will go with my entire hand and do another sweep over all the glitter just to make sure I didn't miss any spots. That is just the last thing I do to make sure and ensure that everything is nice and flat. And then I also focus on the very edges just to make sure everything's nice and smooth and ready to go. Because from here, quite honestly, we're going to do the tattoo right onto this. We don't have to seal this. We don't have to do any of that, which kind of helps the process and it saves you a little time, right? So here I am rubbing the tumbler, making sure nothing was missed and everything is nice and flat. Okay, now here we have our temporary tattoo. I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the packaging. Now, obviously, as it is going to be too big to put on the tumbler just as it is, right? So we're going to have to figure out a way to cut around it to where we can get sort of like a full wrap around the tumbler. So we're going to do half of it on one side of the tumbler, half of it on the other side of the tumbler. So here I'm just going to try to figure out where the best cut is going to be. And you don't want to just do a straight cut across, right? You want to try to go with the design. So I'm just kind of trying to determine here where I want to follow. I don't want to cut out the girl's face. So it looks like I might go around one of the flower petals just to follow the flow of the image, right? So I'm going to measure here, as you will see, how much, obviously you want to try to do half and half, but where I'm willing to compromise and lose a little bit of the image versus cutting right through an image, right? So I'm just trying to figure this out. And as you can see, I cut around the flow of the tattoo around the petal because I did not want to cut through the girl's face at all. That's more important to me than to where the petal is, right? Okay, so now I have to look at it this way because it's going to go on mirrored. So I'm just kind of measuring more or less here where I want to cut at the top, because obviously you need a flat edge at the top. And I am willing to cut a little bit off the top of the girl's cloak or head or whatever that little piece is at the top. And this is also going to be a nice guide for when we're applying it, right? So there is gonna be the top, and then the bottom, I'm gonna leave it. It's gonna fold over to the bottom and it's gonna blend in really well. You will see that shortly. So here I decided I'm gonna go ahead and do the tattoo first. I was gonna go ahead and apply the second piece. Well, both of them at the same time, but what I decided is I'm just trimming the edge on the second piece, and then I'm gonna apply the first piece first before I decide how I'm going to lay this second piece out. So this is what I'm doing here. All right, so as you can see, I just have one of these little food storage containers with a little bit of water and a washcloth that I'm going to wet. This is what we're going to put over the tattoo once we put it on the tumbler, because once you set it, it does have a little bit of tack to it. So once you set it on the tumbler, you can't move it anymore. You're going to need to wet the washcloth, wring out some of the water, but not completely. Leave it slightly wet, but not drenched, because that is what is going to soften the backing. And then we're going to be able to put the tattoo onto the tumbler, almost like a water slide. Not exactly, because it does have a little bit of tack, right? So here I'm just wringing out some of the water and putting that over to the side until I peel off the protective cover on the tattoo, place it Here we go. We're going to go ahead and peel off the protective sheet that's over it. And it is a little tacky. And since I cut the top off, it's going to be very easy to line up with the top, right? I was wondering what I was doing here. I flipped the tumbler over so I could line up the edges on the edge of the tumbler with the edge of the tattoo. It's just easier to line up. You don't want any mistakes here because it is a little tacky. And what's going to happen is if you make a mistake and you try to lift it up, it's actually, because it's so thin, it's going to tear up some of that image. So this is the reason why I chose to do it like this, right? Okay, so now I'm kind of just applying a little bit of pressure here just to kind of tack it on, and I'm going to lay it flat right here, making sure it's lined up at the top. And then I'm just going to lay my little wet washcloth right over it. And then I'm just going to put my hands over it and apply just a little bit of pressure, not too much, just kind of like holding it really. I'm not really doing much, just so all that saturation seeps into the backing and it kind of releases the temporary tattoo onto the tumbler. So I usually give this a couple of minutes just to be on the safe side, just to make sure that everything transfers over onto the tumbler. Making sure here that the edges are nicely covered and getting saturated so we can get released easily without any problems here. Probably a little overkill, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'm also making sure that the bottom is folded over nicely. And that's the first thing that I check to make sure that everything is good to go before I start peeling off anything, right? So that's what I'm doing here. I apologize if I'm a little off frame. But as you can see, the bottom, it's already caught on. Okay, it is ready to go. I'm going to put that so it could be ready to go for the next piece. But here I am just looking at the bottom, making sure it lifted up well. And I'm just working my way from the bottom to the side to the top, being very careful and very gentle, peeling off the backing. As you can see, it tacked on beautifully. That looks amazing. Amazing. So now I'm going to go through with my towel and just dab it, my dry towel, just dab it ever so lightly, just to make sure I get rid of any excess water. And then I'm going to let that sit while we prepare the second image. So here I am just trying to figure out the placement of the second piece of this tattoo. I want to make sure it's as even as possible, but I also want to make sure that I don't have any wide open spots remaining. So I'm just kind of trying to determine here where it's going to overlap, because there is going to be a section that's just slightly going to overlap, but it blends in beautifully. And as you can see, I'm just kind of trying to line it up to where it best fits the flow of that first piece of the tattoo, right? So I'm just being meticulous here and making sure that it falls in more naturally, should I say, with the flow of the image that's already on there. So this probably took me a little longer than I usually do, but I'd rather be safe and make sure I don't really mess up the image. I don't want to cover any of the main image, obviously, but you see, I'm trying to line it up so there's no blank spots anywhere. So the excess that I'm going to cut off, that's actually going to be perfect on an area at the bottom of the cup that's going to be a blank spot. So it's going to fit in there perfectly. And you'll see here in just a second. So I'm lining it up there. I already know this is going to be where I'm going to line it up. That extra little piece I'm saving for later. So I'm just looking, once I peel off the protective sheet from there, I'm kind of trying to figure out where it's going to be, right? So that's what I'm doing here. And I'm peeling off the protective backing. Actually, I'm going to get my water ready first before I peel off the protective backing. Line it up. And then we will apply the second piece here. And do the same thing as we did in the first piece, right? So now, as you can see, this backing is ready to go. And I'm just taking my time here, making sure I do it as gently as possible so nothing gets lifted up. But can you see there? I mean, really smooth transition between both pieces here. And you can see right there in that section right there that it overlapped just a tiny bit. Just a little bit. But I think it turned out really well, actually. All right. Now I'm just dabbing off any excess just to make sure it's a little dry to the touch. All right, now that we have this extra little piece, you will see here in just a second where I'm going to place that, because there is a little empty spot at the bottom of the cup that piece is going to fit perfectly. So as you can see, I'm kind of lining it up with the area that it's blank. There's nothing there, right? So I'm just kind of cutting off any excess to make sure it doesn't overlap too much with the image that's already on there, but I want to make sure that I get the best coverage I can without compromising the rest of the image, right? So, and now we'll just apply that last little piece to that little blank spot at the bottom of the tumbler. And then we will be ready to go on and do our resin. But also, we're going to have to let this sit for a few hours to make sure it's completely dry, so stay tuned. Alright, so I got my nitrile gloves on. I'm ready to get the tumbler going with this resin. I'm using this quick coat epoxy. This is just so it can be a quicker process to get everything sealed in. There will be another coat of regular resin that's going to go on after the final coat, right? This is just to get everything started, get it set up as quickly as possible so I can try to get the next coat on before the end of the night, right? So I'm going to go ahead and mix this up here in my little measuring cup. I want to say I used about a total of about 20 milliliters. It's a little more than I needed, but I always use extra. Anything I have left over, I'll use, I'll put in a mold and do something with it, right? But I'm just going in and measuring. I apologize, I'm not in full frame here. But you can get the gist. I'm just getting the amounts that I need of part A and part B so I can get them all mixed up to get going here. So bear with me, you guys. I didn't want to do too little, so I'd rather err on the side of caution and do a little more than I need than to not do enough, right? So now I'm doing the other part. I don't have the best eyesight, you guys, so I have to get really up close sometimes to read the numbers on the little measuring cups. I'm sure I'm not the only one, right? So here I'm just putting both part A and part B together, and I'm going to get ready just to mix it all up. Usually I add just a hint of glitter to most of my tumblers, just a little bit, just a hint to give it a little extra sparkle. I probably didn't need to do that with this tumbler because obviously the base is the glitter, but never hurts, right? So now I'm just gonna go in and mix it up, right? I apologize, I did not realize that some of this was not completely in frame, so I'm just making sure I get all my part A into my part B here and getting it all mixed up. All right, guys, I have my tumbler turner going. My epoxy is mixed. I did add just a hint of glitter because I like the sparkle. Just a little bit of glitter. All right, now that we have our tumbler going, we're gonna go ahead and start applying our epoxy just with a very light hand. I always start at the bottom, it's just easier for me. I did also put a protective paper here just to protect my turner, really. All right, now we're just gonna start going at it. I have to work fast because this is supposed to be a fast drying epoxy, so I need to make sure that I get every little bit. And you can tell because you can feel just a hint of the texture of the glitter underneath, right? So You want to make sure you don't miss any spots. But that's why you also do a second coat if it needs. All right, I feel like I have it fully coated, but I'm just gonna go in, double check. And this will level out. I'm sure you all are aware of that, but honestly, I haven't done a tumbler in such a long time that kind of feels like I forgot some of the steps, but it'll come back to me, right? I want to make sure I get all my little corners up here, all the edge. And then this is probably where I will go and start taking off any excess. Do I need to do that? No, because it will level out. But I don't want to have real thick coats either. And I'm still trying to decide if I want to put a decal on this. For the name, I believe it's Ali. A-L-I. But because this is a fully covered tumbler, I'm trying to figure out where would be the best fit. So what I might do is once this is dried off, I'm probably going to pull it off and just try to figure out where would be the best spot to put the name. I might not do that only because I don't want to mess with the image at all. So check the bottom here. Bottom feels a little rough, but again, that'll even off. I got my excess here. All right, that feels pretty good. See, I didn't need it all. I still have a bit there, so I'll probably put this in a mold just to so I don't waste it. I'm gonna go ahead and let this spin. The quick coat takes about 4 to 5 hours to dry, to touch. It is not the final coat. This is just to get everything all sealed in. Then we'll use my other epoxy to finish it off. So I'm gonna pause right here, come back once it's dry, decide if I want to put a decal, and then we'll move on to the next step, you guys. All right, guys, this is pretty dry now. I did make a decal here, and it's just a little glittery one. I didn't want to make it too big because I do want to fit it on here. Now it's just a matter of where to put it that flows with the image, right? So I had seen this part and I thought it would probably look great right here in this dark area, because this is where that tattoo overlapped just ever so slightly. You can tell just by the darkness right there. So I thought maybe right here it will look good. I think that's where I'm going to put it. I don't want to cover up anything here, of course. And I had thought about putting it down here, but then it won't really stand out. So I think the best area is going to be right here. So I have already put my backing on here. Okay. Now I need to kind of do it with the flow of, now I don't know if I should do it that way or this way. I think I like it like this. Just like a little bit at an angle, right? Right about here. It's gonna be a little bit incognito, so to speak, but I did want to put the name on there. So Allie, I hope you can appreciate this. Now I'm just kind of rubbing it in. Well, it's Alejandra, but her nickname is Allie, right? So I am just rubbing it in, and then we are just going to ever so slightly, oops, peel this off. Oh no. All right, maybe I did it a little too much. All right, guys, I'm gonna pause here and figure out what I did here. Okay, I got the decal off, but as you can see right here, some of the glitter lifted. Now this is a vinyl that I've rarely used, but as you can see, it did not stick to this area here. So I'm gonna have to find a way to remedy that. I might have to go with a fine tip glue tip and just ever so slightly fill in that area. The rest of this came out fine, as you can see. It's just right here. So I'm gonna go in with a fine glue tip, add a hint of glitter to it, and then that should help the issue there. So I'm gonna pause right here and fix that, and then we'll get to the next step, you guys. I don't want to bore you with the details. All right, change of plans. Rather than having to go back in and add the glitter initially like I was going to, I just went ahead and created another decal and put it right over. It was a little tricky because the last one, the transfer sheet, left a little bit of residue on here, and I didn't want that to kind of show off on here when I sprinkled any glitter. So to make it easier, I just made another decal, applied it on here, and then I sprayed a coat of Rust-Oleum clear coat over just to seal it in before we do the final epoxy coat. So we're gonna go ahead and pause right here, let this dry for a couple of hours, and then I'm gonna do the final coat. So I will be back with you guys here shortly. All right, you guys, I got my resin here, and it's in a bigger cup. I just over poured a little bit and I didn't feel like putting it back. So here I am mixing up my final coat of resin. And make sure it's very well incorporated. I don't even know why I have my tumbler going. It's not like I'm gonna get it on here right away. Okay, but anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and keep mixing this. You gotta do this maybe 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops, and then kind of let the bubbles rise and pop. I am going to find a little mold as well because I know I'm going to have a little bit of extra left over, and that's totally okay. And usually when I do that, I'll go add a little bit of glitter, add a little bit of color or mica powder or something, just to, so I don't waste, you know, a mold just on something clear and boring, right? That's why I have that little tray up there with all kinds of molds, because my niece and nephew love digging through those, so I try to make it fun for them. Just keep on mixing this. And you see, you can see like the bubbles here, like clearly see. So we just want to keep mixing, make sure that it's very well mixed. You want to make sure you don't try to rush through this. I know I'm kind of going fast to mix it, but I do let it sit for a couple of minutes and then start applying it. So that's just my process. I'm sure everybody does it differently. This is what works for me. So I don't have you on camera forever. I'm going to go ahead and pause right here. Let this get all the bubbles out and everything, and then we'll get ready to apply our resin to our tumbler. All right, guys, as you can see, a lot of the bubbles have risen. I'm still gonna go over with my torch here. So let's start applying this here. I always start at the bottom, right? All right, let's go. I always kind of lay it on thick and then take off any excess after, because I want to make sure that I cover it all, right? My glove is a little loose. All right. Maybe I won't have enough for my mold. We'll see. I'll make sure I get the edges, of course. It's always important. And if I do this right, I won't have to put another coat of this. I'm hoping I won't have to. But we shall see. I actually want to do like a little circular motion around the decal because I want to make sure I get in those little crevices. So I always do this. All right. All right, now I'm going to start taking off any excess. Just work my way down very lightly. I don't want this to be super thick. I'll go the other way. Ever so slightly, or should I say ever so lightly. And then I always double check the ends here, the edges, just to make sure that I don't miss anything here. This will all level out as it starts drying. Okay, I see a little piece of the decal that lifted right here where the eye is. I might have to somehow put a stop here and try to trim that off right here. Okay, that probably wasn't the best idea. 1 second, you guys. Gotta clean off my button that I just got full of resin. See, I don't want to edit out any of my boo-boos here because I do it quite often. I want this to be as real as possible so you guys don't make the same mistakes as I do, as I often do, should I say. I'm just trying to clean this off with a baby wipe. All right, now I need to get my little knife. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to zoom in, but right here there is a wee bit of decal just sticking out right there. I'm gonna try to just trim that off. And I got it. Yep. All right. Make sure, well, at least I thought I got it. I guess not. Okay. Let's try this again. I don't want to cut into my design, you know. There it goes. Okay, good. Oops. Perfect. Okay, get it back to go. Make sure that I'm kind of looking at the level of it all. Make sure, I think I need to go back over the letters right here. Just a little bit. Since I did that. Boo-booed. And I might, just for that reason, I might have to do another very light coat. I don't want to do that, but sorry guys, I didn't zoom out. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm just kind of trying to get the edges right here. Because I don't know about you, even with just a regular tumbler, sometimes the edges aren't very smooth, which is very surprising because this doesn't have any chunky anything on it. But you can still feel the bit of the, it's not smooth. Sometimes you have to go back in and sand and then do another coat. It's kind of a pain, but okay, we got it all pretty much covered. I'm gonna let it do its thing. Okay guys, our tumbler is done. I'm gonna move this out of the way. And I do usually go around the rim here. Get this little thing out. And scrape off all the resin from here. As you can see, some of it dripped on right there. That'll be easy to come off. So I just usually comes right off. And then I just go very lightly. Gotta pause right here and get my glasses so I can make sure I'm doing it the best way I can. Okay. Now I just get my little X-Acto knife here and just work my way. It actually should be this way. And just scrape off any excess on here. Anything that dripped over. Anything that's on the edges here. Just making sure I didn't miss any spots. Okay, I got everything there. Now I'm just going to get a little sanding block just so I can sand the edges just a tiny bit and it will be ready to go. Doesn't that look amazing? Yeah, there's a couple of little boo-boos right here where when I was putting the temporary tattoo it lifted a little bit, but honestly, unless you're looking for it, you can't really see it. But this is pretty much done. It's ready to go. Before I have my nephew ship it out though, I'm gonna have to let it cure for a good week. But that is good to go. All right, I'm gonna turn the camera around so we can have a quick chat before I end this video. So there you have it, you guys. One of my all-time favorite things to do, resin tumblers. I love the sparkle, came out amazing. The tactic method with the temporary tattoo, absolutely amazing. Look at that, love it. It felt kind of nice going back. I haven't done a resin tumbler in such a long time just because of my migraines and things. I haven't tried to focus on doing very much resin just for that reason. But I enjoyed it. I really loved the way it came out. It came out amazing. I'm probably going to give it about a week for it to cure before I hand it off to my nephew to send to his friend. But that is it, you guys. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you found it informative. If you did, could you please hit the like button? And if you would consider subscribing, I'd greatly appreciate it. In my next video, my plan is to try out some HTV Ront sublimation heat transfer vinyl. I ordered the 2 different kind, the one for the dark colors and then just a regular clear for the whites, so you can sublimate like on cotton or whatever. So we're going to be testing that out, but it's going to be for fall shirts. So hope you guys stay tuned for that. That is it, you guys. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.